Hey everybody, welcome. This is a beautiful Friday evening and I'm so grateful to have Romi Hancock with me. Romi is an absolute survivor, but not just a survivor, an absolute champion. And I wanted to bring her tonight because in 2020, we live in the world of victims where we're told, we can sue anybody, we can make it anybody's fault, and we can always find a reason why we aren't able to be successful in our life or have what we want to have in our life. And I'm going to bring to you today Romi, and I'm so excited to share with you her story. She's written a book called She Knew She Could and She Did. So I'm just going to summarize from the back of your book, Romi, real quick, if you don't mind. Romi, it says, as a child, I was discarded, forgotten, and thrown away like trash. I felt unworthy, unloved, and unnecessary. At 13 years old, I left school and was placed in a foster home. It was from her foster home where she was sexually abused. She then went into sex trafficking for a brief period of time until she escaped. She had 2 children before she was 18 years old and widowed at 24. So this woman has been through so much, and I'm just so grateful to have her on here because she has just gone now from one success to another success to another success. And, I can't wait for you to just tell them all, but I'm just going to say, just pointing out one level of your success is the fact that you reached the 1% in real estate sales. And that is, people drop out of real estate all the time. I don't know if people know that industry, but that is a rough, tough industry. And to survive that, but not only survive it, but like get to the top 1% with a 7th grade education, right, Romi, is just unsurmountable. It's absolutely epic. And Romi, I just can't wait for you to share your story. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about your beginnings, where you were, a little bit about your sex traffic period of your life, and then I'd like to kind of go into your defining moment. I think this was the moment after your widowhood, perhaps, where you kind of changed trajectory. And when we get to that point, I want to ask you, like, what was going on in your head to know that you could even change your trajectory, that was even a possibility? Because I know you're a fighter, but then there's a difference between surviving and then becoming the hero or becoming the champion in your own story. It's quite different. So you kind of took it up another notch.
Yes. So, my story, you already said a little bit about it in the back of my book, but, my mother had me. I was a product of her cheating in her relationship. So she was kind of an angry mother. She wasn't very happy that I was around. And so I grew up thinking that I, pretty much had to do a lot of things on my own because I didn't have that support. And I had no brothers or sisters. But at 13, I ended up being in the foster care system, and I was sexually abused by my foster father. I turned him in, and instead of getting the help that I needed, I was kind of labeled the trouble kid, the bad kid, the liar. And so I was put into juvenile hall for over a year. That is actually where I met the predator that was the sex trafficker. So I actually met him through another girl that he was visiting in there. And, being young, you just don't really think, that anything's going to really happen to you. So I got transferred into a halfway house, and I called him and said, hey, I might need some help. And he said, oh yeah, I'll help you. So anyways, that then entered me into several months of being tortured, sold, abused, and sold from one pimp to another because I was not the so-called one that listens. I was not the easy one. And I finally escaped. And, I listened to that great intuition. I think we all have that. It's all our birthright to have that intuition. It's just whether we tap into it or not. So I did, and it just said very clearly, this is going to be your night to escape. And I did. I jumped in what would have been a John's car, and I looked at him and I said, if you don't help me, they're going to kill me tonight. And so he helped me, and he got me out of there. And I did end up, getting out of that, but I had 2 kids before I was 18, which is already, that's a lot for somebody that young. I had only gone to 7th grade because that's all. Once I got into the juvenile hall system, there was no schooling for me really. Then was widowed at 24. And at 25, I just really looked at my life and thought, okay, I can either go through all this victimization, or I can now make something out of my life and do something that I want to do. I had dreams. you know, as a kid, we all have dreams, we all have aspirations. And a lot of times when kids get into whatever it is, any kind of an abusive situation, they lose their dreams. They lose that innocent, childlike, you know, gift that all children have. And that's, you know, to just be happy and look forward to the future and want so much for themselves and for, you know, to make their dreams a reality. I didn't have that so much as a kid. So at 25, I decided, and that had all really come from after getting in a car accident when I was 21. I went into this bookstore, and this book almost like fell off the shelf. I swear it like jumped at me. And it was The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. And this was the first time, yes, this was the first time I had ever even heard of anything like this. And when I read these pages saying like, if it's going to be, it's up to me, I was so mind blown. And it took obviously some time to settle in, you know, because I was 21 when I got in a car accident. I'm 25. Now I'm widowed with 2 little kids. And I just thought, you know what, if it's going to be, it is going to be up to me. There is no other choice. And I went to the local college and I said, well, you know, I really want to get a job. I really want to go to college. I don't know what to do. I only went to 7th grade, and the lady was very gracious, and she took me in for a talk, and she said, okay, well, we're going to set you up on your GED. Once you pass that, then everything will kind of flow from there. And I took my GED. I barely studied for it, and luckily I passed it. I think it's a little bit harder now, but it wasn't, you know, that's almost 24 years ago. But then I went into, I was passionate about 2 things, real estate, and I love physical fitness. The gym was somewhere that I could create, strengthen my body, create strength in my heart, and I loved working out. So I decided that I wanted to learn more about real estate and about fitness. Now, unfortunately, I failed my first real estate exam, and so I got discouraged with that. And so I didn't pursue real estate for several more years after that. But I did get all my certifications for training, for being a fitness trainer. So I was elated. And I went into the business of training people and then nutrition. And I loved it because it made me feel so good to help other people, you know. And what I found when I was training people is that it wasn't so much that they needed somebody to hold their hand and tell them what to do. It was that they just were lost a little bit. They were just lost in the fact that maybe they lost a piece of themselves, or time slipped away and they didn't know how they got into the body they were at, or the doctor said, if you don't do it, you know, you're going to cut your life short. And I felt so empowered helping people. And so that's really where my passion has always been, illuminating other people's paths, regardless if it's, you know, whether it's buying houses or it's coaching or fitness. I just love to help people build themselves up in whatever way that works for them. So going into real estate has definitely been a blessing, but I'm still coaching too. And I just have meshed the 2 into my life and builder.
Romi, when did you, so you first discovered personal development at 21, and that's where the 21, and that's when the seeds were planted. And then at 25, you went into real estate. But at what point, so I didn't mention that she's worked with Tony Robbins.
Yes.
She's been a lead coach under Tony Robbins, which is extremely difficult to do. And she also studied under my personal favorite. I just love Wayne Dyer because he's so gentle and he speaks about forgiveness. And I feel like that's the first hiccup in moving on with our life. Like just being grateful, forgiving, letting go. That to me is like, I think of that and I think of Wayne Dyer. So at what point did this girl who had been through so much and widowed and getting her GED at 25, at what point did you kind of go back to that personal development, and you were already doing fitness, you were trying to better yourself? At what point did you get into that personal development so deep that you ran into these 2 meccas in the personal development world?
Yes. Well, you know, we were talking about intuition and just, you know, creating, manifesting, because I believe I'm really a great manifestor. And
actually gifted in that way, we were saying.
Yes. Yeah, I am very gifted in that way. And I really want to say that, in a sense, you know, I took this from Wayne Dyer himself. In a sense, I don't believe it was a mistake that I had this abusive mother. I had this mother that kind of ignored me, because this is the one thing she never told me that I couldn't do. She never told me I couldn't do something. So when I used to say I want to be an airplane pilot, she was like, sure, you're going to be an airplane pilot. If I want to be a zoologist, you're going to be a zoologist. I mean, she was an alcoholic, so she had, childlike tendencies and things like that, even though she was abusive. But she always, kind of backed me. She never said I couldn't do something. So I always believed that I could just do it. So whatever it has been, I know that there's work behind it. You can't just say, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. You have to do the work in order for that to come alive. Now, you can ask the universe, right? So I've asked the universe, hey, I need to meet this person. I need to have this meeting. This is so I can be on my path. And it actually happens like that. When it comes to Wayne Dyer, I need to know who he is. I need him to help me. And it actually just works just like that, and the things flow into your life. Now, of course, I had to put myself into the place where I knew he was going to be, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't, right. You can't sit in one part of the country and he's living in another part of the country and just say, I hope I run into him. You actually have to do the work, even whatever it is, right? You have to put yourself in that place. But Wayne Dyer came so big to me probably back in 2000, I'm going to say 7. Okay. Totally accidental. I don't watch much TV, but every now and then I do. And just so one Saturday afternoon, I was like, I'm going to turn on the TV, and it was PBS, and it was his, I think it was The Power of Intention was on, and I was mind blown again. I was like, the power of intention. Well, this is kind of what I do anyways. I put an intention out there, and then it happens. But I'm doing the work to make it happen. It's not just by accident, but at the same time, the universe, God, wants to give you exactly what you want, So it was The Power of Intention. And then I decided that I would start going to some of his conferences. And that's where I was able to actually meet him. And, some of the conversations we had were, you're going to write a book. I told him a little bit about, and I used to be very embarrassed about my story of being trafficked because there was a negative connotation on it. Like, wow, you were a whore, you were used and abused. That's not a good face that you put forward. And so he said, no, way bigger than this, way bigger. You're going to write a book. And I said, no, I'm never going to write a book. You're going to write a book. Oh, okay. So I did. I wrote the book, right? And the same thing goes for Tony Robbins. I decided I was in real estate in Seattle, and I was doing great, phenomenal. And I thought, I went to one of his big conferences, and I said, yeah, I think I want to go work for Tony, and I want to feel more purposeful, and I want to dive in even more. And I did. I moved to San Diego, once again, putting myself into the place where I needed to be for it to happen. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I sent numerous emails and no response. How many thousands of people try to work for Tony Robbins? Yeah. No response. And I thought, okay, what would Tony do? So the only way you can get people is through email, right? So I typed an email and I put in the subject line, stop looking, I am your girl. And I just kept sending it like 8 times because I like 8. It's like infinity, right? Yeah. I sent it 8 times. The next day I got a call and they said, you're so persistent, we obviously have to talk to you.
I love it.
Yes. That's how that happened. But like I'm saying, it manifesting is also creating, and there's work with creating. It doesn't just fall on your lap, So I teach a lot of people how to manifest and focus on what they want.
I'll ask you in just a second, like the structure of the book and what it goes into. And I know this is about empowerment, and that's your message to people, especially to women. But I would like to kind of go back to what you were saying about sharing your story, because Romi has a beautiful life right now. She has such a handsome husband. She's so beautiful. They have 2 gorgeous girls. Is it 5 or 6 altogether, Romi?
I have 5 altogether.
5 altogether.
Yes.
Just a beautiful family. Her husband that she manifested into her life looks like The Rock. Like if you go look at her page, he looks like The Rock, the actor, right? I don't even know his real name. But so you have this life, and I kind of think like, isn't the temptation there like, don't write a book, don't tell anybody? You know, now you're married and you have this new, beautiful, safe, wonderful life. You're very successful. Why bring that out? You know, why, when you have this new marriage, why bring the skeletons out? Because I know that even though you know this is the right thing, I know the voices that come in people's heads when it's like, why do this? Is this not bringing shame into your marriage? Is this not like, can't we just leave this in the past? Or the shame, or all the lies that we're told in our head. How did you overcome that? And what did your husband think when it came time to share your story?
Yes. So I'm going to tell you this. I actually didn't share my story with my husband until we were already married for a few years. And we've been married 15 years now. And to be honest with you, the reason I didn't is because that's not my story anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I needed to be my story. And at the time, there was no inkling that I would ever be writing a book or have to, even relive it or wanted to relive it. So what happened is there was a group of powerful women that I knew in Seattle that I started sharing my story with them, and they were crying and they said, wow, like you have to share this with other people to help them be powerful. So I was doing a lot of real estate coaching and things like that. And so then I started kind of experimenting with it. I would tell a few people and they would just also, it was almost like what I've gotten a lot of times from speaking and talking to people is that their stories feel insignificant compared to mine. So if I could do what I've done through all of this craziness that's gone in my life, that was actually a real blessing, to be honest, then they can then do whatever that they are seeking to do. And so I feel like it's an empowering story for others, mostly women, obviously some men are very inspired by my story as well, but it's to give them life to what their dreams are. Everybody, like I said, everybody has a dream, and a lot of people have excuses of why that dream's not going to happen. But if they can look at my story and go, if she could do it, then I can do it too. I think that's a beautiful thing.
I think we all need, as humans, it makes it so much easier. I was having this discussion with someone today because my husband is 50. He's a very, very young 50. But, we're still going to have children. We want a big family. And I was saying, you're going to redefine for others what's normal, because everyone else will say, we won't do that nobody does that. And I said, well, one day they're going to look at you and say, but Andre did. So we can, almost like people need a permission, or they need to say, Jessica did that. Romi did that. Romi had this happen to her, and then she did this. We really need a visual. And as strong as I think I am, I love having these visual people in my life. And I think when we study personal development, we hear again and again, if she can do it, you can do it. So even in the company I'm in, we're not where we want to be, but we know we show up. We're going to get where we want to go. And we see the people in front of us, and we know that if they did it, we can do it. And it's just about the grit, the showing up every day. How important is a goal in kind of getting motivated, do you think?
I think it's huge. I think having a goal, having like a set deadline for something that you want is super important. And the reason being is that if we don't have a set deadline for something we really want, it just kind of gets put off. It's, everybody does that. It's somewhat natural to just go, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. So if you have that in front of you every day, then, and it's whatever the goal is, August 31st, that you have to like do what it takes to get to that goal, or you're not going to attain it. And how shitty does it feel when you can't attain the goal?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody feels the same way. It's like, oh.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why some people are afraid to make a goal, just because they're afraid to feel that way. But I think as long as you're working towards it, even if you miss it, I feel like you're still going to be much further along than you would have been if you hadn't done anything at all. And then I just want to ask you too, like, because we're recycling in nature, was it difficult for you to not recycle what your mom did? Because I think for someone to have 2 children at 18 and have not much going on for them in their life, you could have also just kind of been like, it's my kid's fault. Or it's, or done the blaming game. Because I know that was a lot of your mom's abuse with you, like looking down on you like you were holding her back.
Absolutely. I just, honestly, I never ever even thought about being like my mom. I would say that I probably did the polar opposite of what my mom is. So she was brunette. I, want to be blonde. She always wore high heels. I always want to wear sneakers. I'm more of a tennis shoes kind of girl. I kind of just did everything opposite that she did, but I still feel like now looking back, what a blessing that was to have her. And if I came into this life before now, I was, before I came into this life,
Mm-hmm.
if I had said to God, I need to be really strong. I want to, help people around the world. I want, all these things that I want to do. I probably requested, give me a crazy mother, give me the hardest life possible. And so that I can really, and then talk about it and lead with it. And so and I didn't always feel that way. I used to be very angry about my mom until I realized what her story was. And her story was very tragic. And then I was able to have the empathy for my mother and forgive her.
That's incredible. So going back real quick, Romi, how did you go? You went from real estate, then you went to being successful in real estate. When did you transition over to the book writing, like the actual writing your book? And going back to that question with your husband, like now you're going to write that book.
Yes. Well, he was, my husband has always been very supportive. As far as writing the book, so I had already had that conversation with Wayne before he passed away. And then he passed away. And I really had this leading intuition that was, you're going to write this book. And I would say, I don't think I'm going to write the book. And that's still that same still voice that we all have. I would say, you're going to write it. I'm like, crap. Okay, so I'm going to write this book, and I literally just let go, and I let God. And we've all heard that saying, right? But that book had to be produced, and everything that even was in it, even the quotes that I made myself, that was something, okay, God, I need a quote, boom, download it. I had it, and so I wish people would just let go and let that come into their lives, because it is so powerful and it's so real and it's so raw. And sometimes you will get answers that you don't want to hear. And sometimes you will get the answers you want to hear. But I was really divinely guided when it came to every chapter, when it came to every story that I put in there. It just flowed so easily, and it all came together. And there you go. I like to say God and Wayne helped me write the book.
I love that. Did you, was it during our conversation that you said you had a God moment where he said, if you don't change this, you'll die?
Yes.
Is that, so Romi is one of those very intuitive people. And she knows in her gut, like she's very strong. And I love this and I resonate. But when you told me this story on the phone, it was like, okay, this is amazing.
Yeah. So that story was, when I was in my early 20s, I was dancing, I mean, I didn't really know what to do with my life other than to do whatever I saw was in front of me. And I had to support my kids, there was like, really, I've never felt any shame for it. I had to support my kids. And, I remember going in, and I did not like the job, but it was, decent money at the time. And I had not been doing it a very long time, but one night I go in there, and I had recently been baptized. So that really played into it as well. But I went in there, and loud as it can be, I heard from God. He said, if you do not turn around and leave now and never to come back, you are dead. And I was immediately scared, so scared. I left. I grabbed my things, I left, and I never went back. And I've always wondered, like, how many people have gotten it? And actually, whatever it is, whatever it was in their life that they were doing, how many people have gotten that and are actually dead now because they didn't listen? It's kind of like the story of, Sodom and Gomorrah, right? He tells her not to look back at the town, and she looks back, she falls and turns to ash,
Wow.
And I didn't know that story before, when that happened. Somebody kind of said, well, it sounds like this story. And so I kind of researched a little bit, but in the same thing, how, we all have this intuition, that was not what I was meant to do. That was not why I'm here. And so many people right now are being trafficked, are in some kind of sex industry, or, whatever it is, drug dealers, anything that isn't, what we so call a good business, which it's not, it's innately evil, right? How many people are in this?
This sex trafficking is very serious. This is a billion-dollar industry. I was
It's
just you're probably better on the stats, but the one stat in my head just now is 17,000 are trafficked every day, and it's a big money laundering thing. This is slavery. It's modern day slavery, and there's part of me, Romy, that I think, why are we focusing on slavery, hyper focusing on slavery that was 150-year-old history, when we kind of have this thing going on right now, right before our eyes, And I think I heard in your other interview, they were talking about Vegas and how there's sex trafficking over there. And I went there for a conference. And it's kind of going to bother me for a long time because I did see something that I thought was so weird. And I was pregnant. I thought, that looks odd. Someone going into the hotel with a girl. And I just remember thinking it was odd, but then kind of writing it off like Vegas is weird, And I wonder today, it is weird. Okay, it is weird. But I saw so many weird things, so I was like, that's another weird thing. And then I thought about it because that picture is still in my mind. And she looked druggy and groggy like this, like not a drunk, but he didn't look that way. And that's what worried me. It wasn't like two drunk people going from a party. And I always wonder, like, what could I have done? Or it's kind of right there before our eyes. So I feel like we need to focus on what's going on now. And then we also need to focus that nobody on this planet is born with a privilege card. And I think even if you're born into wealth, I think God's not going to let anyone just breeze through this life. Like, oh, you just got a free ticket to heaven. Everyone is going to go through a cross, a trial, a storm, something that they have to battle. So what would you say to that, Romy? Like,
right.
Where we're focusing as a society and maybe where we should be focusing, or just your thoughts on that?
Sure. Well, two different questions here. So I'm going to touch base on the trafficking issue first. I work with Operation Underground Railroad, which is also, something that Tony Robbins is very passionate about. And I also work with another nonprofit, that's Shine San Diego. And that is all about helping trafficking survivors become entrepreneurs and businesswomen. Okay. And so that is something that I'm very passionate about, because most people look at trafficking survivors just like throwaways. I mean, just real honest, and that's something that we've kind of had to battle within that organization, really helping women become who they want to be, who they dream to be, and who they, they should be. They're allowed to be that. They had dreams. These are people. These are, souls, right? Operation Underground Railroad tackles all around the whole world and brings down enslavers that are taking these, children that are as young as 2 years old. And it's just really disgusting. And it is, and your gut instinct was right. That was probably somebody being trafficked in Las Vegas, because it's a huge mecca. And so is, a lot of different cities, unfortunately. And these guys, they come in, and, one of the biggest ways that they come in and grab these girls, and it's predominantly girls, is through social media now, because that is such an easy way to get to somebody's heart, and they feel good, and they never come off. Nobody ever comes off and says, hey, I'm a trafficker, I'm going to, go sell you. It's all a very elusive, manipulative style that they do. I mean, like, you're so pretty, or, and they look for girls. I once watched this pedophile talk about how he could look in a room of 100 different women. He could pick his one victim by the way she stood and the way she walked.
And what was that?
Insecure, unsure, very unsure of themselves. And 70% of the girls that are trafficked come out of care. And, usually, not saying all of them, the other 30% is a lot of times people that have a divorce situation in the home. It's not generally from a very strong home, a strong bond with the family. There's usually something going on, and sometimes it can just be going through the hard teenage times, right? But they have a model of what they want in a girl. I was not particularly that model, because I was so feisty that I fought and fought and fought.
Well, that's why they try to break you down and abuse you and torture you.
Right before I got away, I had, they ripped off the tape. I had been in a closet for a long time. They ripped off the duct tape and I had, like just open wounds. And so they try to break you. And luckily I survived. Unfortunately, most of them don't just escape.
Wow.
They eventually submit because you can only take so much before you just go, okay, I'll just do whatever you want me to do, and I have to say I was almost to that point. But luckily I heard that voice. So those two foundations I think are simply amazing with the help that they're doing to help the world. And then we get into what you asked me about privilege. Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of things are going on in the world. And my husband's Black, and I have mixed children, and I've never had a thought of what somebody's color is. First of all, I didn't ever grow up like that. Even though my mother at 12 said she didn't like Black people, which I was a little shocked about and kind of like disappointed about, but I didn't really look up to her that much anyways. But I grew up in Miami, and I never really saw color. Already there's such a melting pot of everybody there, so everybody's just normal. It doesn't matter what you look like. So I would like to say, I've never personally experienced any of what we call white privilege. It's just, I've had no privilege. I've had to go after everything I want. And every person of every color that I know that's been successful in life has had to battle it out and go after what they want and have doors slammed in their face. No, no, no. And the one thing I've really taken in is that failure is part of success. The more you're told no, the more you can't do something. If you have that desire in you to keep going, that is what gets you there. I think there's a quote that says something like, failure is right on the neck, or is right through the door of failure. You know what I mean? Or success is right on the other side of failure. Yeah.
Or go for the no. Like there's only so many no's that you can get before you get like this really great yes.
I use that in real estate, right? I get told no all the time. Like, okay, 7 no's gets to a yes. That's kind of like what, we say. And I've just never experienced. I mean, possibly there is some people that feel more privileged. I've never experienced that ever in my life. In fact, it's always been super difficult for me. And the more battle I see in it, the more difficult. I'm like, okay, now I'm really going after it. Wow. No? Okay, let's go.
It's interesting because the way I grew up, my dad put himself through medical school. And they had 8 kids. And so they were poor. They were like dirt poor as he was going through medical school. And he started late too. And so it's really interesting to see him do everything he did. And then he paid off his debt, and then he paid off the house, and he worked really, really hard. And I think my mom, she made all our clothes growing up. And then they finally got to this stage where, my oldest sister didn't have any lessons at all. The middle group had some lessons, and the youngest were raised really, really well. they were our lucky little sisters. But I would hear people say, as my dad would do charities later on, they would say, oh, it's because he's rich, which he wasn't. He wasn't rich. We weren't. But they assumed because he was a doctor, or they assumed everything just came so easy because they saw what he had at the time, which, he's not a very extravagant person anyway, and they're very, very generous. But I saw that people were writing off their generosity as it didn't matter because it was just, a drop in the bucket. And then I went on to go see other people, and I'm just really amazed that it doesn't come easy to anyone. Anyone who's achieved a level of success has gone through, the hard work to get there, whatever that looked like. And I find it so fascinating. I would, your two charities, I'll put those links down below. And then can you just tell us quickly about just summarize your book, because I know it's an empowerment book. And I've just ordered it, you guys. So I think, Romi, we're going to have to come back and talk about the 18 points. Yes. And kind of how, because I cannot wait to get through it. I really am excited to get through it and do the little growth myself. But tell me how it's structured.
Yeah, so my book, here it is. She believed she could, and she did. It's a roadmap to success. So I do tell my story in there, but I tell my story so that people can gain an insight, a little bit of who I am. But that's just the first 4 chapters. The rest of the chapters, there's 18 chapters. The other 14 are all about how to empower yourself, how to let your intuition guide you, and how to create wealth, health, and passion in your life, and really go after what you want it is in this life. I mean, it's like we can either live on purpose or we can live by accident. When we live by accident, we get anything and everything. But if we live purposefully, we can now feel, we can go after what our actual dharma is. What are we here for? What is our life purpose? What are we here to give?
That's beautiful, Romy. That's beautiful. I can't wait. I think we need to do another one. When I've read the book and I've got those, because it's based on principles, right?
It is. It's principles. I have 18 principles. That's right. And just how we met is amazing, right?
Yeah.
How we met. You're naming your daughter Romy.
Yeah.
I think I saw something. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I fell in love. I think I connect with you on a lot of levels, Romy. And when you talk about like this strong personality, you won't be told no. You won't be kicked down. You always kind of maybe a positive thinker and a learner. Like, what is that? I'm gonna try that. Why did I hear that? I'm very similar to that, and I feel like there's a lot of attraction that has come into my life by opening myself up to it. And it was funny, like when I saw it, I was like, Romy, and we were debating on the name, Romy. I think we always do, like when you're expecting, you're not really sure. And then I saw your name and I was like, I do love it. And then I followed you for a while and I was like, okay, she's Romy. She's gonna be my little fighter. She's probably gonna give me trouble, but it will be good.
It is.
I'm sorry.
It's a learning, she has to figure it out for herself.
Yeah. She's a doll baby. I love her so much. Romy, thank you so much. I'm just follow her, you guys. She's on Instagram. She's on Facebook. You'll see her link on my Facebook. But I'll get this uploaded. And Romy, just thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Sending you so much love.
Oh, you as well.
Okay.
You and the Rock. Tell the Rock I said hello.
I will.